On today's video, we're going to be working on an electrical issue. So here we have the light switch in the on position. The light switch that corresponds to the light fixture is not turning on. The light switch that corresponds to the light fixture is not turning on. The first thing you want to do is check your circuit breakers and make sure none of the breakers are in the trip position and none of them are turned off. The next thing you want to do after inspecting the circuit breaker is you want to come over to your GFCI. Whenever there's water, this is generally found in your kitchen or in your bathroom areas, you want to inspect the GFI and make sure the GFI is not tripped. If your GFCI was tripped, your button here would be in the pushed out position. If that's the case, all you have to do is go ahead and reset it. So right now we know none of our circuit breakers were tripped. The GFI was not tripped. So the next thing I would recommend is go ahead and pulling the light switch down and testing to see if we have 120 volts coming in. I'm going to turn the light switch to the off position. So here I have my multimeter set to volts AC, and I did remove the wires with the wire nuts and shove each of my leads going into the wire nuts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the light switch on and see if I have 120 volts feeding my light fixture. Now I'm going to turn the light switch on. And here I'm only getting 54 volts. So this indicates to me that I'm not getting the 120 volts coming in from my light switch. So at this point, I am going to have to pull the switch. I'm going to have to test the lines coming in from the circuit breaker. Turn the switch off. Move your test leads. Before we remove our light switch, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the power by turning off the breaker that feeds the 120 volts here to the light switch. What I always try to advise those who are new to electricity, safety is very important. When you're dealing with anything that has to do with a light fixture that works off of a switch, generally you want to keep in mind that the breaker feeds the power to your switch. Your switch then feeds the power to your light fixture. So when you turn your switch to the off position, you should not be getting any power to your light fixture. So when you have to replace a light fixture, if you turn the switch off, you'll be able to work with the light fixture, remove it and replace it as long as your switch is in the off position. However, when you're dealing with a light switch, even though your switch is in the off position, once I pull this plate off and I expose those wires are still going to have voltage feeding to the switch. Here, we turn the breaker to the off position. Once you remove the two screws, go ahead and take your plate and put it to the side. Now we're going to remove the two screws that secure to the box. So right now I have my multimeter set to volts AC. You can see here I have the wires exposed, and I'm going to test these wires, and you're going to see that I'm going to have no voltage because I did turn the circuit breaker off. But now I'm going to turn the circuit breaker on, and you're going to see that I will have voltage coming in to my switch. Now we'll turn the breaker back to the on position. You can see here that I do have 120 volts when I test my lines coming in to the switch. Again, this is important to understand. I do have 120 volts coming into the switch, even though my switch is in the off position. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the switch on. A lot of times when you mess with these switches and you kind of move them around, this will fix whatever the issue was as far as sending the voltage to the light fixture. So you can see here, I turned the switch on and now my lights are working. The thing that I do like to do, especially when I'm dealing with electrical, again, keep in mind that you do have 120 volts feeding this, is I will grab the switch or the outlet and I'll move it around. And a lot of times what happens is you'll hear crackling or the lights will go out. If that's the case, I do recommend replacing the switch or the outlet. You can see this is the issue. Every time I move this, you do hear that crackling. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a view of the light fixture and play with the switch. Turn the breaker to the off position. I have my multimeter set to volts AC, and I do not have incoming voltage. Now here, if you look at the outlet switch, you can see that there's two ways that you can actually connect your wires. You can either insert it here to the back, if you see here, and you just basically slide your wires in and feed them into the clamp, or you can wrap them around here on the sides of the screws. Being involved in maintenance, I've met guys who only argue that you should connect your wires using the screws on the side. They explain that it's much more secure. Others say that the best way is to insert it into the back. I'll let you guys debate it in the comment section. To remove the wires, if they're inserted through the back, right here it says to press in to release. So you have to use a small flathead screwdriver and just shove it in there, and once you push it in there, you should be able to pull the wires out from the back. You can see here I inserted my screwdriver and it'll pull right out. Right now I'm just inspecting the exposed portion. You can see there's a little bit of discoloration, minor charring, so we're going to cut this off. Once you cut it off, it'll give you just a nice clean connection to work with. We're going to reconnect our new light switch. Doesn't matter which wire you connect to which one. This is just a basic light switch, a single pole. If you have a double pole, three-way, that's going to change which wire goes where. But on these, you can just put them on any one that you choose, and it doesn't matter if you connect it from the back or if you want to connect it on the sides. So here I've connected my switch to the lines feeding from the circuit breaker. Make sure that you put your switch in the position where when you turn it on, it's on, and when you turn it off, it shows off. Now that we have the light switch off, we're going to turn the circuit breaker on. Now we'll turn the breaker back to the on position. Now we're going to turn the light switch on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the switch off, turn it back on, turn it off, turn it back on. Now we're going to put our plate cover back on. If this video was a help, if it was informational, please subscribe.